You could call me a pickleball paddle fanatic as I own around 50 beginner paddles to test and provide you feedback. Now, I realized I wanted to create this video when I saw that some content pitched beginner paddles in the $200 range. And if you're a beginner, I personally would buy a cheaper paddle that can familiarize yourself with the game before making such a large investment. So all of the best paddles I'm going to discuss are under $100 and most of them are under 50. Also, this is just my view, just for informational purposes only. Let's get started. In my opinion, the best beginner paddle in 2025 is the Dr. Pickleball Surgical Control Paddle. When I look for a beginner paddle, I want a paddle that provides me control. As I've improved over the year, I wanted more of a power paddle, but when you begin, it's all about getting control where the ball is going. The Dr. Pickleball Surgical Control Paddle provides just that and was released in 2025, so this paddle is brand new with some cool technology that I helped develop. First, the paddle has a 20mm thickness, which is slightly larger than a lot of the other 14mm and 16mm paddles. That extra 4mm provides ample control on your shots to help you improve faster. In addition, I want to share a story about 4 recent games with this paddle. I explain it in a deep dive review that I wrote that I also included a link in the description. So in the first game, I played with a $10 pickleball paddle that was okay, and I lost that game 11-6. After the second game, I went to an $80 carbon fiber weave pickleball paddle and barely won the second game 12-10. In the third game, I played with my #1 favorite pickleball paddle, the Jula Ben Johns Hyperion CFS, which is around $150 to $200, and won that game 11-8. Game 4, I decided to play with the Dr. Surgical Control Paddle and had my best game yet. I won the game 11-3. And what I felt was that I had such good control of my shots. The grip on the paddle grips the ball, and the 20mm thickness gives me that control to get your shots where you need them to fall, whether it's a drop or a dink. In terms of price, I saw this paddle originally around 70, but I just checked Amazon and now it's below 50. This paddle currently has a 5.8 rating based on 5 reviews, and it was just released in 2025, and you can find a link in the description below to check the price against the website's price. Before we cover another great budget beginner option, I wanted to ask you a quick favor. If you are interested in future pickleball paddle content, I'd love it if you consider subscribing or liking this video by clicking the buttons below. It's definitely encouraging to me and motivates me to create additional pickleball content regularly so that you can up your game in pickleball. Enough with the plug, let's cover up the runner-up paddle. Now the runner-up paddle is a PBV blah, 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 paddle. It's an interesting name, but the paddle's pretty good. You'll see this paddle has one of the most interesting beginner experiences, and while the Dr. Surgical Control won in a head-to-head competition with this paddle, I still find it a decent option for under $50. Now you may be asking, why do you say that? This paddle has a 16mm thickness, so it's a little thinner than the previous paddle, and it has a honeycomb polymer core, and it has a carbon fiber surface, which is what I always look for. Now, you may not believe this, but I played with a $200 paddle recently against my friend, and he's probably in the 4.0 duper range, and he beat me 3 games in a row when I was playing with that $200 paddle, but then I switched to this paddle and actually won the last game 11-3. I couldn't believe it. Now, I like this paddle so much, I wrote a review that you can include in the link in the description below for a little bit more information about the paddle. I think it's a great paddle at a good value, and the nice thing is it had a nice unboxing experience that was a pleasant surprise. It came with a nice box, carbon fiber cleaner, grip tape, extras that you don't necessarily always find at this price point. And if you want to check the price, I'll include a link in the description so you can look at this because it does have a very interesting name, so it can be kind of hard to find. Now, while it does feel like it has a slightly smaller sweet spot and it's a bit stiff in some of these other options, it still holds its own, and I think it's a pretty decent paddle. Again, I prefer the Dr. Surgical Control paddle to this, but I still do think that this is a decent runner-up paddle. Now let's talk about the second runner-up paddle, which is the Fanovey 3D pickleball paddle that you can also find on Amazon. Now this paddle was pretty cool. The Power Max series has multiple different versions, and I've actually tested, I think maybe all of them. Now, again, I would say this might be another beginner paddle. It comes with a pretty nice sleeve, and I'll include a link in the description below to the review article that I wrote about it. Now, like the one above, what I did appreciate about this paddle was it did have a nice unboxing experience. Now, there were a few different versions, and all the paddles, I like the 3D the most because I thought it provides spin and control that were both decent. And it's a competitive paddle when you're looking for that beginner paddle, and this paddle is often under $50, which you can check. Now, number 4, this is one of my favorite all-time beginner paddles, which is the Vatic Pro Prism Flash. Now, I rate my beginner paddles based on 4 key components. 1, value, paddle size, paddle weight, and paddle ability. Now, this is one of my favorite beginner paddles, but it is a little bit more expensive. So this is generally around $100, and with my code BPickleballer, you can get this paddle for, I believe, under 90. It does come with a pretty nice paddle cover, and yeah, the paddle has great carbon fiber face. It provides some power, some control, and I think that this paddle will definitely last at least a year or two. And I think that I played a lot of games with the paddle, and I feel like it has power and control, which you're really looking for in that beginner paddle. Now, if you're considering the Vatic Pro Prism Flash, you decide generally between a 14mm and a 16mm paddle. That defines the thickness of the paddle, and if you're an intermediate or advanced player, you may opt for the 14mm, but if you're a little bit more beginner, you might do the 16mm. 14mm may give you a little bit more power. I own both of those paddles, so I like them both for various reasons, but I would say if you're strictly a beginner player and you're looking for a little bit more expensive beginner paddle, then the 16mm may be the way to go. Now, the next paddle I'm gonna talk about is the Solana carbon fiber paddle. This is an 8-ounce paddle. It has a 4.125-inch grip, and it's also carbon fiber. Now, what I really like about it, the paddle weight and height I think are great for beginners. I think it has a decent blend of power, control, and speed. Now, what you may find, the grip may be on the smaller side, and I really do like that it's carbon fiber. I didn't feel like I had as much control on some of my other shots, but I think it's a good beginner to intermediate paddle, and it's generally under $75 when you use the code BPickleballer, and I also include a link to the Amazon so you can compare the price. Now, maybe the paddle height and width aren't as large as my other paddles, but I really appreciate the carbon fiber face and the grit that gives you that spin. I played a session with this paddle recently, and I absolutely love that aspect. It may not have as much spin as some of my other paddles, but I think it's a fantastic paddle at a great price. Next, I'm gonna talk about a very, very cheap paddle, and it's the ZZT, ZTT, and whatever. I'll put a link in the description below if you're looking for it. But this paddle is generally I found it under $10, and sometimes you could maybe find it for under 15 if it's not under 10. This is one of the least expensive pickleball paddles that I could find, which means that if you think about testing a paddle out of the low price, from Amazon, this may be one to go. Now, I did lose the game I played with this paddle, so I wouldn't say that it was a great paddle, but for $10-ish, and it looks nice. It looks nice and feels okay. Supposedly it has a carbon fiber surface, which is great. For that price point, I don't think it's a bad paddle. And I'll include a link in the description below. Now, one of the things with beginner paddles like this, they'll come and go very quickly. So I'll include a link to a search that you can do on Amazon that you can find many of the paddles in that $10 to $25 range when these go available. Because oftentimes these get sold out really quickly because I think they're so cheap. And that's kind of just how it goes. Lastly, I'm gonna talk about the best beginner set that I could find. Now, this set is the Selkirk SLK Latitude. I found it at Costco, but surprisingly, I can't find it at Costco anymore, and I could only find it on Amazon. Now, it was a higher end of the price point that I would like to see, potentially a bigger beginner paddle, but you get two of the paddles, and I think they're pretty good paddles. The Selkirk is one of the best brands out there. And it came, this paddle set came with a bag and a couple balls. Now, I thought the bag and the balls may not have the best paddle quality, but I did like that. I think there are some good things. Like, it feels like it has a little bit of grit on here. And I thought it was a decent paddle set for a beginner set. Now, because there's so many of these paddle brands out there, like I've bought in paddles on Amazon before, and they're like the same, it seems like they're the exact same paddle, but different brands and different prices, just because they're kind of like cheaper fiberglass paddles. And I thought this one was pretty good, in my opinion, for a good set for beginners. Now, I'm gonna answer this question, where to buy beginner paddles. Now, you can buy paddles at Amazon, Target, all these different places, but I find that they have wood paddles, and I detest wood paddles. So the best place that I've personally think have beginner paddles is Amazon. I've also bought some on Alibaba, or bought a paddle on Alibaba, and still, I always come back to Amazon. Now, what do you look for in a paddle? Due to the fact that there are thousands of paddle out there, do you choose a 14, 16, 20 millimeter paddle? Do you spend $5 or $20, $200? In my opinion, your first and most important question is this: do I think that I'm gonna like pickleball, or do I have absolutely no idea? If you have no idea, then you may wanna go for a really cheap paddle. Now, if you are a tennis player that's now opting for pickleball, then you may go for a paddle that's in the 50 to up range, right? Because you know you're gonna be playing it for a while, so you may go for a little bit more expensive a paddle. But what I'm looking for, again, value. When I want a beginner, I want to understand whether I like the game. So I wanted something that has value. Also, control. I want a paddle that's going to help me control where the ball goes. I don't care necessarily about spin or power when I'm first starting. That's something I definitely care about now. But when I'm first starting, I want to know that I can control where the ball is going to land. And then once I have that down, then I can add spin and power. Thanks so much for watching this video. I hope you have a great day. Please watch my next video. I'm going to put a link over here because I want you to be able to see other paddles that you can buy that are not necessarily the mainstream pickleball paddles out there. Thanks again for watching. Hope you have a great day.